Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. In today's video, we're going to explore a heartbreaking story of how a disagreement between two former friends took a tragic turn, forever changing the lives of two families. So, let's dive into the details of this case that left a deep impact on everyone involved. Let's start by talking about the two main individuals at the center of this tragic event, Bryanna Barzini and Halia Culbertson. Bryanna was 18 years old at the time, living in Westerville, a small town in Ohio, and attending Columbus State University. She had no prior criminal history, which made what happened even more shocking. Halia, on the other hand, was 17 years old when the incident took place. While their full history wasn't made public, it's known that the two girls had some form of relationship, whether as close friends or just acquaintances with mutual friends. Everything changed on March 26, 2023. What should have been just a typical evening quickly spiraled into a nightmare. That night, Bryanna and Halia crossed paths at a convenience store in their hometown, a place neither could have imagined would become the setting of such a tragedy. According to reports, the two hadn't been on good terms for a while. The once friendly relationship had turned sour, but the specifics of their fallout are still unclear. On that fateful night, Bryanna walked into the store, unaware that Halia was already there. What started as an argument between the two quickly escalated into a violent confrontation. Halia was visibly more agitated and was eventually asked to leave the store by an employee. However, instead of leaving the area, she waited outside, seemingly intent on continuing the dispute. Surveillance cameras inside the store captured the initial exchange between them, footage that would later be crucial to the investigation. When Bryanna finally exited the store with a man by her side, Halia immediately approached her in the parking lot. Witnesses say that Halia confronted Bryanna, and the situation became heated fast. Bryanna tried to de-escalate the situation by backing away and repeatedly telling Halia she didn't want to fight, but things only got worse. Halia allegedly threatened, pushed, and hit Bryanna. As the tension reached its peak, Bryanna pulled out a knife and, in a split second, stabbed Halia once in the chest. At first, it seemed as though the fight was over, but Halia soon noticed blood on her chest. It was then that she realized the severity of her injury. The police were called to the scene at 11:48 p.m., responding to a report of someone injured outside the store. When they arrived, they found Halia suffering from a stab wound to her chest. She was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, but despite the best efforts of the medical team, Halia succumbed to her injuries just over an hour later, at 12:24 a.m. on March 27, 2023. The official cause of death, as confirmed by the autopsy, was the stab wound inflicted during the fight. This tragedy shook the local community, especially because the incident took place at a popular convenience store where people would frequently stop for quick purchases. One of the customers who witnessed the crime, Louis Barnett, shared his shock, telling the police that it was horrifying to see something so violent happen in a place that was otherwise peaceful. He expressed sorrow at how young lives were being lost too soon, and many in the community echoed his sentiments. As for Bryanna, she didn't flee far. The police found her at her home later that night. She admitted to having brandished a knife during the altercation, and in her first statement to the authorities, she confessed to the crime. This admission quickly turned the case into a homicide investigation, and Bryanna was formally charged with Halia's death. Bryanna's bail was set at $750,000, with strict conditions placed upon her, including a ban on carrying any weapons and an order preventing her from contacting Halia's family. She was initially held in custody, but after posting bail, she was released while awaiting trial. The first court hearing was held on March 28, 2024, where surveillance footage from the store's security cameras was presented as evidence. The footage showed the argument, the escalation, and the final moments leading up to the fatal stabbing. Multiple witnesses also testified, identifying Bryanna as the one who inflicted the wound. Additionally, a cell phone video recorded by one of Halia's friends outside the store was played during the hearing. In the video, you can clearly see the two girls arguing before Halia slaps Bryanna, which led to the confrontation spiraling out of control. The events of that night have left both families devastated. Halia's family is left to grieve her tragic loss, while Brianna's family grapples with the reality that their daughter is now facing serious legal consequences for her actions. Both girls were young with their whole lives ahead of them, but one moment of anger changed everything. The tension between the two girls reached a boiling point as their heated argument escalated into violence. In the video footage, you can hear one of Halia's friends shouting, Get off my sister," as the situation intensified. Bryanna and Halia, who had once known each other, were now locked in a confrontation that was quickly spiraling out of control. Halia hit Bryanna, and it was at that moment that the tragedy unfolded. Halia recoiled in shock, realizing she had been stabbed. Despite the injury, the two continued to scuffle briefly before being separated. When the fight was finally over, Halia's shirt was soaked in blood, a sign of just how severe the injury was. As the case developed, Brianna's defense attorney argued that the situation was an unfortunate result of a fight that had gotten out of hand. He claimed that Bryanna did not intend to harm or kill Halia, but had acted out of self-defense when things escalated too far. Initially, Bryanna faced murder charges, but after extensive negotiations, her legal team succeeded in having the charges reduced to manslaughter. This change in charges was a significant development, as it meant that Bryanna would now face a far lighter sentence than if she had been convicted of murder. Instead of a life sentence, she could now be sentenced to just 3 years in prison, with the possibility of early release for good behavior. The court accepted Bryanna's plea deal, allowing her to plead guilty to manslaughter, while the original first-degree murder charge was dropped. This decision surprised many observers who had been following the case closely, as the severity of the incident led some to believe that a harsher sentence would be imposed. However, the legal team's successful negotiation paved the way for a lighter punishment, and in early June 2024, Bryanna officially pled guilty to manslaughter. In the months leading up to the trial, questions continued to swirl around the case. Was it truly a situation of self-defense, or did Bryanna deliberately cause Halia's death? Was it a moment of panic during a fight between teenagers, or was it a more calculated act? These lingering doubts made the trial all the more dramatic and intense. Bryanna's defense team prepared to argue that she had acted in self-defense, a claim that would put the burden of proof on the prosecution. In Ohio, self-defense laws require the prosecution to prove that the defendant did not act in self-defense, a shift that occurred when the law changed in 2019. Before that, it had been the defendant's responsibility to prove their self-defense claim to the jury. As the trial progressed, new evidence came to light. Among the key pieces of evidence were text messages Bryanna had sent to someone a week before the incident. In these messages, she made threatening remarks about Halia, stating that she would cut her if she ever came near her again. This revelation cast doubt on Bryanna's claim of self-defense, as it seemed to suggest premeditation. Bryanna's lawyer attempted to have these text messages excluded from the trial, arguing that they were sent long before the actual incident and should not be considered as evidence. Despite these efforts, the trial moved forward, and Bryanna faced sentencing in Franklin County, Ohio. The courtroom was filled with tension, as both families awaited the outcome. Bryanna, now 19 years old, was sentenced to 3 years in prison for the manslaughter of Halia Culbertson. The hearing was highly emotional, especially when the judge allowed members of Halia's family to speak before the sentencing. For over an hour, they shared their pain, anger, and grief, insisting that Bryanna had deliberately taken Halia's life and that the act was premeditated. The courtroom was filled with tears and raw emotions as the family expressed their devastation. Throughout the trial, Bryanna maintained a calm demeanor, though her face showed sadness and remorse. By the time the sentence was handed down, she already knew her fate, thanks to the plea deal she had agreed to. Her defense team emphasized her cooperation with the investigation and her previously clean record, noting that she had never been involved in any criminal activities before this tragic event. In a brief statement before her sentencing, Bryanna addressed the court, expressing her regret for what had happened. She acknowledged the pain she had caused Halia's family and said that she would live with the guilt of her actions for the rest of her life. With her sentence now official, Bryanna was taken into custody to begin serving her time in a women's prison in Ohio. If she maintains good behavior while in prison, she may have the chance to request early release, a decision that will ultimately rest in the hands of a judge. This possibility of early release has further divided opinions on the case, with some feeling that justice has been served, while others believe the sentence is far too lenient for the severity of the crime. This tragic case has not only devastated Halia's family but also turned Brianna's life upside down. Prior to this incident, Brianna had never been involved in any serious trouble, but the events of that night left her facing a future behind bars. Both families have been deeply affected, and the weight of this tragedy will be felt for years to come. Thank you for watching. This tragic story highlights the need to address conflicts before they escalate into violence. What do you think could have been done differently to prevent this heartbreaking incident? Was it truly self-defense, or was there intent to harm? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more true crime stories. See you in the next video.